Aloha, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Faith and Family First podcast, where Jim and I are going to be taking a closer look at Hawaii's rankings on the U.S. News and World Report website. We're going to look at everything from healthcare to education to quality of life, and we're going to examine what these actually mean. So join us as we discuss how our faith plays a role in Hawaii's rankings. So let's chat about that. Hi, Jim.
Aloha.
So last week we talked about the legislative session and all of the sad issues that we're facing. And one of the things that we mentioned on the show was that a lot of these issues, they come back and they come back and they come back. It's because of the same people being put into office over and over and over again. And I think that kind of plays into what we're going to be talking about today. Hawaii's rankings.
I mean, think about it. If you want to be a member of the legislature or the city council because you want to be able to influence laws that are being passed, you're going to have a worldview that you bring with you, which we've talked about before. And the worldview of the majority of our legislature is very different than my worldview. So most of the laws they passed, I don't agree with.
Now, about 4 shows ago, maybe 3 shows ago, you actually gave a call to action. You asked people to think about their worldview.
I did.
Because we were talking about the survey that was done by the Arizona Christian State University. And, and I'm hoping that people that listen to the show, that they do take to heart what we talk about, because they all roll into each other, right? My personal worldview, whatever it is, whatever it's based on, is going to be how I vote. It's going to be how I get involved in the legislative process. If I'm running for office, I'm going to be bringing this worldview into my office. And we see this on the national level, right? We see a lot of these things that we're facing, whether it's drag queen story hours or whether it's parents' rights being terminated in schools. It boils down to somebody's belief system.
Correct.
And I think that it's important for everybody to kind of start with themselves to figure out, what am I basing my worldview on?
And the main point of our prior show was most people actually don't think about their worldview. And they use their worldview anyway for all their moment-by-moment decision-making efforts, but their worldview is a mishmash of the decision-making info because they get it from different places instead of thinking specifically, does Scripture generate my worldview? Or do I get some of my worldview from my favorite TV show or whatever?
So if we start from the premise that Hawaii is a beautiful place, so let's start with the good, right? Hawaii is absolutely, in my opinion, I don't know that there are too many places that can match us in what we have to offer here in, the beauty of the land and just our beautiful weather, which sometimes can get really yucky. But I mean, for the most part, we have nice, comfortable temperatures. When I'm driving anywhere near the ocean and you see mountain on one side and ocean right there in the same view. I mean, where in the world can you go skiing in the morning, like on the Big Island, and drive and go surfing in the afternoon?
So my answer is the equator runs around the Earth at the center mark.
Right.
And if you were to go from the equator up to where the Hawaiian Islands are, specifically Oahu and the Big Island, and you were to take that longitude or whatever it is, latitude, and go all the way around the globe on both sides from the same distance from the equator, it would probably be pretty close.
Yeah. Well,
the question is, how much land is in that band?
Right. But for those of us that were raised here all of our lives,
You
to
weren't
me,
born here.
I was not born here because my dad's in the military, but my dad is a local boy, and I was raised here from when I was very tiny, small kid time. And unlike certain ex-presidents, I have pictures of myself growing up here in Hawaii with all kinds of pictures. I am not making the claim whether he was born here or not, so I don't want any nasty immigrants, but I am saying that I have pictures of me when I'm like just small in diapers at the Honolulu Zoo. Okay. So let's just say I can prove that. Anyway, I love this place.
Is that why your eyes are brown?
My eyes are brown because the Lord loved me and said, you need brown eyes.
All right.
So the point is
yes,
that I love this place. And I tell everybody I'm going to be buried here. I will never move out of Hawaii unless the Lord flows in my room one day and says, you will become a missionary and go to Africa or something. Then obviously I'm not going to argue with the Lord. But hopefully he never says that because I love this place. So Hawaii's number one pillar that holds us here is tourism, right? That's a big thing, that part of our economy is tourism.
That's what this report said. And I made a note there.
Okay, well then let's start there, Jim.
Because if you remember when John Waihee became the governor after Ariyoshi, we had $1 billion surplus in the state treasury. And instead of giving the money back, do you remember what he did with it?
Vaguely.
He hired government workers. And you know what the interesting thing about government workers is?
What?
They are called civil service employees. And you want to know what's really interesting about civil service employees?
Go ahead and tell us.
You can't get rid of them, which means we've been paying for that the whole time. So I think tourism and government employment are the two sources of employment. And that doesn't even include military, which is a big thing too.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really sad because Hawaii's economy is very expensive. You know, it's very expensive to live here. And people are just, right now they go to the grocery store and they're like, how much is that for that gallon of milk? And if you need milk, you're not going to go and spend double the price for the smaller container of milk, right? You're going to go for the bigger one because you're going to try to make your pennies work to the absolute best. But I know Grassroots Institute talked about how many people are moving away from Hawaii because of the cost of living.
But did you see the median income on that report?
I saw, and we'll talk about that. But I mean, I think, I
don't think it's enough.
Well, that's what I mean. When you actually, okay, I work for a nonprofit.
You were way above that.
I don't know, Jim. You don't know what I make.
No, but it's only 40,000.
I'm telling you that most people.
There's no way people can live here with $40,000 a year.
I am not far away from the 40,000, and I will tell you. And so my kids are all gone now, so I don't. It's not like I have to raise any children. But even for my own, what I have to pay for, whether it's electricity or my mortgage or whatever, I am telling you that I struggle. So people who make 40,000 and less in Hawaii are definitely scraping the barrel and doing the very best they can to survive. And I think that is absolutely horrible.
So
horrible.
The other point, though, about coming up with a median income is it requires polling to figure it out. And so all the people that can't be polled because they are homeless kind of drags this 40 down lower.
And Hawaii has a lot of we have a lot of homeless
because the
here.
weather's always
good. And we have a governor that he's made it that's a priority for him to deal with the homeless in Hawaii. And I think anybody involved in leadership has to talk about homelessness and has to talk. And I will say I am so proud of Hawaii's churches. So many of Hawaii's churches have risen to the occasion to help people with housing and homelessness and poverty and making sure that bills are paid and all of that. And I'll tell you, it's a faith-based community that meets a lot of the gap. And so, you know, I don't want to talk about these kind of things and not shout out the Christian community that does a lot of good work. So let's talk about a few of these categories. So again, this is a report that was done by U.S. News World Report, and it's a recent ranking, right? So you can find it on their website. We're going to have it linked for those of you that are watching on YouTube. You can go ahead and look at it. So crime and corrections, Hawaii ranks number 10. And I'm going to go through this real quick, and then I'm sure you have things that you want to bring up. Economy, Hawaii ranks 48.
And we're telling everybody that it's out of 50 because this is comparing the 50 states.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we are on the bottom on the economy. Education, we're ranked 24. So we're about the halfway point. Fiscal stability, we are ranked 46. Interesting. We're ranked number 1 in healthcare.
And if you think about it, we had employer required provided health insurance way before anybody else did.
You know, back when my oldest daughter was a young mother, she was in her 20s. She was a single mom. And I tell you, our system was so good. The Quest system that they had back then, it was fantastic. And then I have to say that even people that supported Obamacare were very disappointed when Obamacare was forced on Hawaii because we had a really good system prior to Obamacare. So I'm glad to see that we're ranked number 1 on healthcare, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the findings there. For infrastructure, we're ranked 37. Natural environment, yay! Shout out to Hawaii. We ranked number 1.
Which we have nothing to do with. God gets all the credit.
Yeah, God gets the credit for that one. And opportunity, which is, and again, I think this goes back to the point of Grassroots Institute saying a lot of our young people are moving, and this is why. Opportunity, we're ranked 45.
So can I ask you questions about what some of these mean? Because I only got the PDF from you.
You know what? I don't want to put myself into a situation where I'm explaining what they meant because I was looking.
Maybe they said
well, they might have. And we're just touching the surface on this, right? So I think that people, especially people who like statistics, they need to look at this report and dig down deeper. So any of these jump off the page for you?
Well, I would just say at the beginning, I'm not sure what they mean by some of these 1-2 word topics like crime and correction were number 10. That sounds good, but I don't know what it means. Is it because we send our prisoners to Arizona? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the fact that economically we're 2 from the end, fiscal stability, which I think relates to who's living on the edge of bankruptcy, we're 4 from the worst. Infrastructure, which I'm guessing is our, water system, sewer system, roads, bridges, that stuff, we're 37. So we're in the bottom half pretty deep. And then with opportunity, I don't know exactly what that means, but you may be right that it's our young people are leaving and we're 5 from the bottom. I mean, we're at the top for things we have no control over, like how beautiful it is here. We do have control over the healthcare system and we're number 1 there. So that's like something we could say, wow, humans in Hawaii actually did one thing better than everybody else. And that was it.
That was it. Well, according to them on crime and corrections, so now I'm clicking down further on the link. It says crime and corrections category is one of 8 categories driving the overall best states rankings and encompasses metrics reflecting corrections outcomes, such as incarceration rates and public safety as determined through crime rates. So that's what they're referring to.
And you know what? It's really interesting. Are you familiar with Camp Agape? Of course you are.
Yes.
I wonder if Camp Agape, which is not only in Hawaii, but it started in Hawaii, which brought the gospel to the families of incarcerated parents and has had an enormous, unexpected benefit and positive outcome of the families bringing the gospel to the incarcerated parent.
Well, not just,
and that would reflect in a higher rating.
And I also want to say that there are numerous churches of varying denominations that actually have prison ministry, and they actually go into the prisons and they teach Bible and they do Bible study. My nephew was a product of the system, and he got saved in prison. And he has a very close network of guys that all got out and got born again together, and they fellowshiped together. And when I talk to him, sometimes I'm thinking, wow, I mean, it's amazing, to me that they find Jesus. But you know what? That's a good thing about serving the Lord that we serve. He will meet you wherever you're at. And, and no matter what you've done, Jim, isn't that the most important message of hope? It doesn't matter where you are in your life. The Lord will come to you in your darkest places, if you seek him if you seek him, the Bible says
That's
you
true.
will find him.
Preach it, sister.
And well, that's some good news, right? Okay.
Gonna wipe the sweat off your brow. Come on.
Wipe the sweat off my brow. All right. So anyway, so that's what they come up with on the crime and things.
Well, so before we leave that though, in Hawaii, out of every 100,000 residents, 181 have been incarcerated.
Okay.
The national average is 307 per 100,000. So that's a very low number. Our violent crime is out of 100,000, we have 254, and the national average is almost 400, it's 399. So we are lower here, and it might be because of what we call the Aloha spirit.
So let's make it clear, because again, I'm clicking because I want to make sure that we're accurately reporting this, right? So I want to say how they get their metrics, right? And this is what they say. In calculating the rankings, each of the 8 categories was assigned weights based on the average of 3 years of data from recent national surveys that asked nearly 70,000 people total to prioritize each subject in their state.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that they asked 70,000 people.
This isn't actually looking at the crime statistics, it's asking people for their opinion.
Well, this is the overall on all of the different categories.
No, I didn't realize that.
Well,
I thought this was like
well, they say they're no, but they're
government data.
Well,
driven.
it says 3 years of data. So my guess is that they probably, to do a really well done survey, and we've talked about this, not only are you asking people questions, right? You've got to pull the actual statistics. And so I'm assuming that they not only asked people to rate their states, but they actually pulled the crime numbers and all that to come up with it. Because there's no way anybody would just do a report based on what 70,000 people tell them. And if that's the case, then I would go, it's these guys.
Okay.
So, all right. So any of these other numbers jump out at you? Let's talk about the education, because the education's very interesting. So what did you...
Well, we all knew that the economy sucks.
Well, as we're talking about education, can we just say that there are a lot of private school system right here in Hawaii that have done a phenomenal job? And let's give them a shout out, because during COVID, a lot of these private institutions did not shut down.
Correct.
In fact, during COVID, a lot of kids were taken out of the public school system and put into the private school system because parents wanted their kids to be in a classroom learning. And so I got to say,
I actually wasn't aware they had space for them. I thought everybody was homeschooling. I don't have any kids left at home.
So. I can say that in some of the conversations I had with some of the private institutions, they had their enrollment went up.
No kidding.
Because people wanted their kids in a real learning situation. And I know from a lot of parents, including myself, having to homeschool my grandson, and he was in high school at the time. I was thinking, this is why I did not become a teacher. That is not my gifting, right? I mean, I had to do it. I didn't have a choice to do. But so what were you thinking about the education?
Well, I wondered, because we have an 86.3% high school graduation rate. And I wondered, are we graduating high school graduates with a high school education, or are we graduating people to get them out of high school that don't have a high school education? I don't know. That's just what I wondered.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I would say that people involved in the education system, let's hope that they're saying, as they're listening to this, going, oh no, these are statistics here, are kids graduating, they know how to read, they know how to do math, and all that kind of stuff.
So if you have a business and you hire high school graduates, comment for us. Are the high school graduates able to read, able to critical reason, able to be on time, able to be responsible? I'd be interested to know. If you own a business and you hire young people, let us know.
What you might have is people saying, well, prior to the pandemic,
maybe
they were better, right? Because I keep hearing over and over again that our kids were provided a disservice during COVID and during the lockdown.
I was provided a disservice during COVID, and being a lawyer, I was exempt.
Everybody was provided a disservice, except for Florida. I don't know that Florida even knew there was a pandemic, right? I mean, everybody was going to.
It's a good place to live.
Everybody was.
It's
in
a good
Florida
place
going,
to live.
What pandemic? Tell me about this pandemic.
Who's living in Florida?
And then it's funny, and then fast forward all these years, and in Florida, people are like, "What? What?" Most of them did they get vaccinated? I don't know. Maybe that's another show. All right, so
education-wise, though,
yes.
There was a chart of how much it costs to get higher ed.
Yes.
College.
Yes.
And there's more colleges than I knew, actually.
Really?
Because obviously there's UH Manoa, where I graduated, and there's obviously Hilo. There's BYU, we know about that. Chaminade, we know about that. And HPU. But I didn't realize that University of Hawaii West Oahu and University of Hawaii Maui were considered separate institutions.
My daughter went to University of West Oahu, and it's like a Leeward community college in the sense of what they provide. And I will tell you that the classes are smaller, and she loved it. Like she absolutely, and she thrived there. Not everybody's meant to go to a big institution like University of Hawaii.
Not everybody's meant to go to college, actually.
Well, that's a whole nother show. But I mean, for those that choose to go to college, not everybody likes sitting in a classroom with hundreds of other students in an auditorium style setting, right? Do you remember?
In order to do that, really, you must be self-entertaining.
Well,
and
nowadays,
if you're not self-entertaining, you can be kind of bored. But if you're self-entertaining, it doesn't matter if you're on the subway.
Well,
you have a great time.
I remember when COVID lockdowns first happened, and my grandson had to get his special little computer that they had so that he could do all his courses online. I remember watching him, thinking to myself, I would have thrived in an educational system where I did not have to be around people, because I was in school in the 70s, and I was the product of bullying. I got bullied, and I was like, I would have loved.
You went to Catholic school. What kind of Catholic bully?
It doesn't.
What is wrong with the girls in Catholic school?
First of all, I didn't go to Catholic school my whole life. My grade school years.
There are mean girls, though. There are mean girls.
The point is that bullying happens, and hopefully it's kind of tempered down in private schools, especially Christian schools. But I will say that bullying takes place, and I would have loved to not have to deal with the meanness of adolescence, because I think everybody who works with adolescents knows how nasty they can get.
Do you know what I learned as an adolescent in middle school?
I'm sure you're going to tell us.
Never go down the stairs with your hands in your pocket.
Why?
Because if you trip, you can't stop yourself and your face plants. I did that.
Oh, Jim.
That's my middle school. That's what I learned. In all of middle school, that's what I learned.
I went to public school for the first 4 years of my life, right? So up to fourth grade. And I will tell you, they still had paddles.
I always went to public school.
They had paddles on the wall back then. And if you got the paddle, you got the paddle. And I'm not talking child abuse, okay? I'm talking where, you got a paddle. And you would go into the office and you would see the paddle on the wall and you would be good because you didn't want the paddle. So, I'm not advocating for that. So please don't send me any nasty emails. I'm just saying that we grew up in a very, very different time.
We did.
So anyway, the kids today, in college, they're having all these interesting ways of learning. They've got online learning, they've got in-person learning. So, there is some good to the way that people are being taught today. And it goes back to the University of Hawaii West Oahu comment. My daughter loved it. She said it was great. So was that the only one?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So if you click on this, for those of you that are interested, you can find out what the tuition is. And on this report, it says the University of Hawaii at Manoa was $34,000 for an out-of-state.
HPU was cheaper than UH. If you look on that, I was surprised because usually the state university is cheaper.
So which university are you saying was
HPU,
cheaper?
Hawaii Pacific University.
Hawaii...
It's like $4,000 less.
Well, it's $31,000 for them, but they don't have an in-state, out-of-state. So I don't know.
No, because it's private.
Right. So $31,000. But if you go to University of Hawaii and you're a resident, it's only $12,000. because because it's in state.
Do you know when I went to UH Law School, the semester tuition was $250? The books cost more every semester than the tuition.
I got most of my education in the United States Air Force.
So before we run out of time, I want to talk about something that might impact how we live here. It's a statute that I discovered in my concealed carry training course. I didn't know we had a statute, section 5-7.5. You know what the title of it is?
What?
Aloha Spirit. Now, Mitch Kale, you're not going to like this. It's very religious. You're not going to like it, brother, but hang with me. Very interesting. This is a statute. It got enacted in 1986. It's been there ever since. In exercising their power on behalf of the people, in fulfilling their responsibilities, all of the government workers in the legislature, courts, everything like that, they, blah, 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 may contemplate and reside with the life force and give consideration to the Aloha Spirit, in quotes with capital letters. Well, what is the Aloha Spirit? Aloha Spirit, according to the statute, is the coordination of mind and heart within each person. It brings each person to the self. Doesn't this sound like religion? Each person must think and emote good feelings to others. In the contemplation and presence of the life force, quote, aloha, close quote, the following unuhi laula loa may be used. And
I apologize to all our Native Hawaiian brothers and sisters for listening to Jim massacre the Hawaiian language.
That's okay. Then it goes on to say, these are traits of character that express the charm, warmth, and sincerity of Hawaii's people. It was the working philosophy of Native Hawaiians and was presented as a gift to the people of Hawaii. Aloha is more than a word of greeting. It means mutual regard and affection and extends warmth in caring with no obligation in return. It is the essence of relationships in which each person is important to every other person for collective existence. Aloha means to hear what is not said, legislature, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. Maybe that's why.
How did you not know this?
No, I didn't realize it was a statute.
Yeah.
I knew about the concept.
Okay, so then let's give a shout out to Duke Iona, because back when he was LG, and I know you remember this, he did a big thing with the Aloha cards, and that's where that came from.
I did
on
not
the Aloha
make
cards,
the connection.
And that was one of the reasons that Duke was pushing this out there, because as we saw, there's nastiness on both sides of every issue. Now, a lot of people will point fingers at the conservatives or the people of faith that say, you guys are the ones that are nasty.
Well, we are, because we disagree with them. But we're not mean to them.
Well,
we just disagree.
I think it goes back to the question that you asked a couple of weeks ago and that we talked about at the beginning of the show. People have to look at their own worldview to see how they react to things.
Correct.
I think all of us can be guilty of at times of being too angry, where we're reacting in a way that we're not being Christ-like. Because again, the reason we do this show is because we believe that as Christians, we have a right and a duty to bring our faith into the public square. And the Aloha Spirit is nicely encapsulated in who we are as the people of this great place.
Correct.
And and that's another reason why I will never leave, because I've been everywhere else and there is nowhere else like Hawaii.
What if the King of Monaco wanted to marry you and you could be the Queen of Monaco? That happened with that actress. I forget her name.
Okay. Well, stay tuned to the show because I will never be a queen, but I am a queen.
I will never be a queen.
I serve a king. I will say that. I serve a king. And so do you, hopefully. So thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Make sure you like this video, share it. Make sure that you hit that notification button so you know every time we upload a new video, and hang in there with us. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Mahalo, everybody.
Aloha, right out of the statute.